to the shop, everybody. On the bench today, we have this Partscaster. I assume it's a Partscaster. Uh, have no idea how old it is. Now, it's fairly heavy, so I'm assuming it's probably a Squire body. It's an aftermarket neck. So the owner brought it in. I think this might have been the first time in a long time that it's had any service done to it. He did tell me that it was recently refretted, but I can tell you right now that these fret ends are very sharp, almost like maybe a Squire Bullet or Affinity quality on the fret end. So I'm going to fix that for him. Came in for a pro setup. So basically, we're going to break it down, check everything, get it set up the way he wants it. So I'm going to get a few tools out and we'll get started here in a few minutes. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is I want to take the measurements of where the guitar sits right now. He did not, my customer did not complain that, you know, he had fret buzz or that the strings were too high or too low or anything like that. So I'm just going to take a few measurements here and I'm going to scribble them down. On a scratch sheet of paper here. So the first thing we'll do is we're going to look at string height at the 12th fret. It's about 5/64. So just write your string height down there. We'll take a look at the pickups. Alright. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out the radius of the fingerboard. He said he thought it might have been 14. So we're going to get our string, or not string, but our radius gauges out here, and we're going to slide this right here, and we're going to see if it is indeed a 14. Looks kind of close, so we will try a 12 and a 15 just to make sure. So here's a 12. It is not a 12. Maybe a 15. Thing you can do, you can put both of them on there, one fret apart, and kind of hold them both up and look. Yeah, we're going to call it a 14. So we're going to set the 14 aside because we're going to need it later when we do the bridge saddles there. So the next thing we would do is to check the neck relief. And unfortunately, on this guitar, the truss rod adjustment is in the neck pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and take the strings off, and so I can get to that neck pocket. Well, we can check it here real quick, I guess. Let's set this on there. Yep, and the truss rod needs to be tightened considerably on this thing, so I'm going to go ahead and take the strings off, loosen these neck bolts so I can get to the truss rod adjustment, and I'll be back. Okay, so I've got the neck removed, and if you're lucky, you get a truss rod adjustment up here where the fingerboard meets the headstock. If you're unlucky, you get it down here. So basically, I'm looking at this right now, and there's definitely a bow in this neck, so we need to tighten the truss rod. Let's see what that does. It was completely loose, so let's see what we got now. Might have been a little bit too much. We're going to back it off just a little bit. About 1/8 of a turn. Put this back on there. Alright, that looks good. No gaps. No gaps at all in there. So we're going to call that good. We're going to put the neck back on now. I can see that there's a little shim in here. And it also has the micro tilt adjustment. So this may actually be a fender body. Not a, well, I mean, Squire by Fender, but I don't think this is a Squire body. Doesn't look like plywood. So it may just be an old, and this is a WD neck. So I don't see any date on it at all. So we're just going to put that neck back on there. We're going to check the tan line to make sure it's lined up. Get our trusty dusty screwdriver here, and I do the neck bolts just like you would if you had a flat on your car and you go to tighten the lug nuts. A lot of people think on these neck bolts that you got to crank them down as hard as you can. You don't have to. Just get them where they're snug. If you tighten that neck down too tight, you may end up causing other issues with the neck pocket cracking, or it could also warp your neck as well. So alright, so we got that tightened down. I'm going to check this one more time before we do any more work on it. It looks flat to me, so we're done with that. So the next thing we would do is we're going to check the frets. indicated to me when he dropped his guitar off that it was recently refretted. So we're going to check here. Already got a high fret. So let's see what we got here. Yep. Second fret already. This is the most common issue that comes in my shop with people wanting to set up on their guitar. It's just that the frets are not trash, but they're so uneven that it ends up creating issues. Yep. So of the first 5 frets, 3 of them are extremely high. So I don't know who refretted this thing, but whoever it was should probably find a new hobby. Another one. Another one. Another one. You hear that? Another one. Another one. That one's marginal. All right, so on a 22 fret neck, 10 frets need to be leveled. My rule of thumb on this, if it's 3 frets spread out, I will level each one individually. If I've got 2 back to back or more than 3 frets on the whole fingerboard, I level all the frets. So I've got fret 2 and fret 3, fret 5, fret 7, fret 9, fret 10, 13, 15, 17, and 19. So in this particular situation here, it's much more efficient and it's cheaper for the customer for me to go ahead and just retop all of these frets. Like I say, I don't know who did this refret, but I mean, you can literally, if you put too much pressure on these sides here, you will cut your fingers. So, I mean, I don't know who did it. I'm sure they're a wonderful person, but their fret work leaves a little bit to be desired. Not so much the fret ends, but the frets themselves. It could have been that when they did the refret, the neck had a bow in it. That could be the reason that there's so many frets that are high. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get my leveling to put some of these setup tools to the side and get my leveling tools out, and I will be back in a few minutes. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to get our Sharpie back out, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint the top of each one of these frets with the Sharpie. Like that. So I've got each one of the frets painted now with the Sharpie. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take all the pressure off the neck. Then I've got a diamond grit leveling bar, stainless. I'm just going to set it on there. I'm not going to lift it. I'm just going to keep my hand under it so as I come down I don't bang the headstock, which I have carpet, but still it's a good idea. I'm not going to push and grind the frets. I'm basically going to use the weight of my hand just to take this diamond grit over the top of the frets, and as I go, the Sharpie will be basically ground off, and you'll see the nice shiny fret underneath. So we're going to start right here, and just like I say, just the weight of my hand. And you can already see on some of these frets you've got Sharpie kind of going away, and then other spots it's kind of staying. So the spots that are nice and shiny now are the high spots. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to continue with this. And as you can see, there's one particular fret right here. Let's see, right here, that the Sharpie is still nice and black on the upper half of that fret. So that tells me that that fret is really, really, really low. So before we do anything else, go ahead and tape off. I broke rule number 1. Protect the guitar. May go ahead and hit that middle pickup too, since I got to do some work with that file down here. So, all right. got right here. So now I'm going to take my fret rocker, same thing we did to begin with. I'm just going to check it and see. Still a little bit high. So sometimes it'll take 4 or 5 passes to get everything leveled out. And again, I'm not putting all 260 pounds of my body weight onto this diamond grit file. If you do that, you run the risk of not only damaging the neck if you don't support it, but also you're going to grind your frets down to nothing. They'll be so low you'll end up needing a refret. So again, we're just going to, the weight of our hand on the file, I'm going to concentrate on this area down here. And make sure when you're doing it, you're not putting any front pressure or back pressure on the file to cause it to gouge into the fret. Again, just the weight of your hand. Move parallel to the neck, don't go sideways. So keep the file parallel and just very light pressure. Basically, you want the tool to do all the work. You're here just to supervise the tool. So, all right, we got 99% of our Sharpie is off, so we're just going to fret rocker it again. That's good. That one's still a little bit high. That one's good. That one's good. That's good. That's good. Well, actually, we can put this back on there now. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. So let's see right here. So let's mark that number 2. Those are still a little bit high. So we'll do one more pass with this thing. more pass with it. Another thing I forgot to mention is don't set down when you're doing this. You have a tendency to go this way with it or at an angle. Stand up, stand behind the guitar neck, and just work it. All right, let's check that and see where we are. That's good. So on this one right here, number 3, we can get our little single diamond grit fret rocker out for that one if it's just 1 or 2. That one. Alright, so we've got our original 7 down to 2, number 3 and number 5. So we can take our diamond grit smooth, that sets on the outside frets from the one that's high, and you use your diamond grit to bring that down. So again, we're just going to set that right there. Again, with this tool, you want to stay parallel to the fingerboard. You don't want to have it cocked at a angle going this way, because the radius of the board, you need to maintain the radius of the board, and how you do that is by the 2 frets on either side of the one you're working on. That provides you support so that when you are working from bottom to top or top to bottom, you maintain the radius of the fingerboard with the file. Alright, that took off a considerable amount, so let's see what it looks like now. Still a little bit high. So Another thing you can do is you can move the file back and forth like this. I don't like to do that because depending on the type of fret, if it's a cheap fret material on the guitar, you'll scratch the other two, which is in this particular instance is not that big a deal since I crown, or not crown, but I leveled all of the frets, so they kind of got scratch marks anyway from that diamond grip. But nobody's going to call the FBI or send a SWAT team to your house because you did it like this. So it still needs a little more work on that. And this is why people bring their guitars to me for my pro setup, because you're not going to find any guitar shop anywhere around here that will spend this amount of time on a guitar. If they did, they would charge triple probably what I charge. It's getting there. Most places, when you bring your guitar in for a setup, they change the strings. They may mess with your action a little bit, and they'll check the intonation. That's it. And some places charge 50, 60, 70 bucks for that. It's ridiculous. Before I started doing my own work on my guitars, I would take them to a music store, and probably 7 out of every 10 times I'd have to end up taking it back because something wasn't right. So I got tired of it. I mean, I didn't have to pay multiple times, but after you paid and they hold on to your guitar for a week, and then they call you and tell you it's ready, and you go pick it up and something's not right, then it takes 2 or 3 more days to get it corrected. Then you get it, and you get it home, and something's not right, and you got to take it back, and they end up having your guitar for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. That's kind of ridiculous for a setup. So I try to do all of my setup turnaround in 2 days. So you drop your guitar off, 2 days later you're picking it up. There are times where I get backed up in my shop because I am a one-man show. I'll get backed up in my shop, and it might take 3 or 4 days, but I can guarantee you won't be bringing it back to me 2 days later because something's not right with it. Alright, we're going to call that one good. Next one is number 5. We're just going to lay that on there like this. I can really feel this file digging in there too, so that one was really high. And I don't do this as a day job. I actually have a day job. This is just my hobby. but it keeps me pretty busy. I got people in and out bringing guitars to me to fix or refinish or repair, set up. I got people from the East Coast, West Coast, Florida, mailing me guitar bodies and necks. They want me to flake them or burst them or translucent seafoam green nitro them. So the only thing with the finish work is I live in southern Louisiana, and sometimes the environment is not conducive for finishing. My paint booth is not. My shop is climate controlled, but my paint booth is not. So when it's 100 degrees outside and 100% humidity, all right, apologize for that. I had a phone call. So anyway, I was saying I don't do this for my day job. I do it for a hobby, and I got people send me guitars from all over the country wanting me to refinish them or do repair work. But sometimes the climate in southern Louisiana is not conducive for any type of nitro or even the 2K poly stuff that I use. So there's a little bit of a wait on that. I've got one customer in Washington State who sent me 3 bodies and 2 necks. Want me to flake 2 of the bodies with matching flake headstocks, and one of the body, the third body he sent me, he has a translucent or transparent seafoam green Gibson Les Paul, and he wanted a flame maple top Telecaster the same color. So I've been working on that here and there, but when he sent it to me, he said he was not in that big of a hurry. So I explained to him, you know, this time of the year, the summertime, especially down here, it's just tough to, especially clear coat. I could spray the flake, but the clear coat is what holds everything up. I don't know what's up with this 5th fret, but it just don't want to play today. It's almost there though. All right. A little bit more right there. Let's see what we got. All right, we're gonna call that good. So, all right, so the frets are now all level. Actually, before we say that, let's you know what? I'm gonna run this. One more time, just to make sure. Like I said earlier, sometimes it'll take 4 or 5 passes with this diamond grit. And it only takes a few seconds, so it's not going to hurt anything to roll it one more time here. check it one more time. Alright, so that's good. So the next thing we're going to do is I've got this little Japanese fret in dressing file. So all we're going to do is hit those fret ends. Actually, let's turn it this way. Feels better already. So the next thing we would do is our polish and recrown. Start with 120. Much better. Hit it with some 180. 220. And then finally 320. Clean rag. Next thing will be our 7 grit. I don't do number 1 because it is 220, I think, and we've already done to 320 with our polish and crown tool. So we'll start with 400. So you can already see the frets are getting shiny just right there with 400. So I'll do 800 through 8,000 and I will catch y'all when that's done. Alright, so we got the frets basically from 120 to 8,000. So they look a lot better than they did. Got a little bit of a shine to them. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and treat this fingerboard with some F1 oil. Just a little piece of shop towel is all you need for this first step, because really all you're doing is just kind of spreading the oil around. You won't let it sit there. fingerboard was dry. Alright, we're going to let that sit there. Leave it wet, like it looks like you just sprayed it with water. We're going to let it sit here probably for about 10 minutes. You can see all the crud. It's kind of pulled off. Make sure you get the oil everywhere. Alright, so we're going to let that sit there for about 10 or 15 minutes. I'll check it in 10. If it still looks wet, we'll let it set for another 5. Usually after about 10 or 11 minutes, it's soaked in what it's going to soak. So we'll check it here in about 10 minutes and we'll be back. Okay, so we've let this board set. I actually let it set for about 20 minutes. Pull off a little bit bigger piece of the cloth. We're just going to push all this oil in there and then wipe the rest off. I'd say that was pretty dirty. Alright, yep. Pretty dirty. So what I like to do after the oil, is take a little bit of this guitar honey and put it on there. Alright. So we got the board looking nice. Frets look good. So the next thing we'll do is we'll pull that tape off. See all the crud on there. So after that, spray this down with a little bit of this stuff. That. Take our little brush here, get all that crud out of all them little nooks and crannies. Next thing, check our tuners, make sure they're nice and tight. Alright, those are good. So the next thing will be we put some strings on it. And he gave me a set of strings for it. He runs Diodario XL nickel wound 946. So we'll go ahead and get it strung up, get it tuned up and stretched, and then we'll come back. We'll radius our we'll set our string height, and then we'll radius our saddles off of that. So stand by, we'll be back. Alright, so we got strings on there. What we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of tension. A little bit of tension on there. We identified earlier that it is a 14-inch radius. So we're going to check our string height on the 12th fret, which we recorded earlier as 5/64. Same thing with the little e. So now we'll take this radius gauge and we'll put right there. So I tell you what, let's tune it up. Alright, so that's close enough for right now. So let's set that right there. So we're going to have to drop those down just a little bit. So we're going to drop this one down just a little bit. That one down just a little bit. And that one. Just a little bit more on that E. Alright, that's good. So, alright, so now we'll just get her tuned up. Good stretch. Another good stretch. so that looks good there. The intonation looks like it's right on. So next thing we'll do is we'll plug it in, give it an electronics test, and so we'll be right back in a few. Alright, so here we are. We're going to give it a little electronics test. Make sure everything's working the way it's supposed to work. That's the final step. Well, the final step is to clean it and polish it and put it back in the case. But so here's the bridge. Position 2. Position 3. Position 4. Position 5. So everything seems to be working the way it's supposed to work. The next thing I would do is probably the least glamorous thing, is to check each string fret by fret by fret by fret. So so I'm going to call that good. I appreciate everybody hanging out with me today. If you like the video, please like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I've got a ton more guitars over here that are going to be on the bench in the coming weeks. If you have any questions, comments, bitches, gripes, moans, complaints, let me know. Again, I appreciate everybody hanging out with me today, and I'm signing off from Patriot Guitars in Hammond, Louisiana.